If you let every stress signal control you, life controls you. It will test your body in traffic jams and sleepless nights. It will test your cells with every meal, every worry, every moment of joy or rage. A single argument, a single missed workout, a single night of poor sleep, and suddenly your biology shifts. Your energy drops. Your thoughts cloud. Your future feels heavier. That's how subtle it is. That's how power slips away from the inside out. Most people believe strength means pushing harder, ignoring the signals, or simply accepting their limits. They think their genes are fixed, their destiny written at birth, their health a lottery they can only watch unfold. But real power is quieter than that. Real power is understanding that your inner state is not at the mercy of a rigid genetic script. Your biology listens. It adapts. It remembers. Life does not just test your mindset. It literally writes on your biology. You are not a passive victim of your DNA. Every thought you think, every bite you take, every experience you live leaves marks, not by rewriting the code itself, but by deciding which parts of that code get read and which stay silent. This is epigenetics. And once you truly see it, nothing about how you live, how you age, or how you shape your future will ever look the same. Most of us grew up with a simple story: genes are destiny. You inherited your father's heart risk, your mother's anxiety, your family's body shape. End of discussion. Science seemed to confirm it. A fixed blueprint you could only follow. But here is the deeper, more astonishing truth. Your genes are not a rigid sentence. They are a vast library. And epigenetics is the system of highlights, notes, and bookmarks that decides which books get opened, which stories get told, and which potentials stay hidden on the shelf. Imagine your DNA as the hardware, the same hardware every human shares. Epigenetic marks are the software, the conductor guiding a 100-piece orchestra, the annotations in the margins of life's instruction manual. One mark turns up the volume on a gene for resilience. Another quiets a gene for inflammation. Stress from childhood can leave echoes that last decades. Loving touch, nourishing food, deep focus, and even moments of awe can rewrite those instructions in powerful, lasting ways. You carry this incredible responsive system inside every single cell. And it doesn't stop with you. These marks can influence how your children, and even your grandchildren, respond to the world. The choices you make today echo forward, from cells to families, to entire patterns in society. This is how personal biology meets civilization. How the quiet decisions in your daily life help shape health crises, mental strength, longevity, and even the emotional climate of future generations. Think about it. Why do some people collapse under pressure while others rise? How can identical twins with the exact same genes end up with dramatically different health outcomes? Why does trauma sometimes travel across generations, yet healing and potential do as well? The answer lives in the epigenome, that dynamic layer sitting above the genes, responding in real time to how you live. This changes everything. It means you are not doomed by your family history. It means your habits are not just superficial preferences. They are instructions to your biology. It means that the smallest daily choices, what you eat, how you move, how you handle stress, even what you believe, carry profound weight. You are writing your own operating manual moment by moment. In this audiobook, we are not going to promise you a life without challenges. We are not going to tell you genes don't matter. And we are definitely not going to overwhelm you with technical jargon. Instead, we are going to train something far more valuable, a new way of seeing yourself and your power. Over the next 90 minutes, you will discover how your epigenome works. You will learn how to work with it instead of against it. You will see how thoughts become chemical signals, how food becomes information, how stress leaves marks, and how recovery erases them. You will understand the science deeply enough to feel wonder and practically enough to take immediate control. This is not about becoming a perfect person. It is about becoming intentional, about realizing that you are not just surviving your biology, you are shaping it. That steadiness, that agency, that quiet power becomes your edge. In a world that often tells you your limits are set in stone, the person who understands the responsive nature of their genes moves differently. More hopeful, more responsible, more free. Take a slow breath. Settle into this moment. Prepare to meet the extraordinary system inside you that has been listening all along. This is your training, not to fight your biology, but to partner with it. Not to fear your genes, but to lead them. So let's begin. Chapter 1. Your genes are not your destiny. Someone looks at their family history and feels defeated. Heart disease runs in the family. Anxiety, weight struggles, cancer. And just like that, a simple belief settles in. This is my fate. My DNA is written. There is nothing I can do. This is where most biological helplessness begins. Not in your actual genes, but in the meaning we attach to them. Genetic determinism feels natural. It feels scientific. The brain is wired to look for causes, and what better explanation than the code you were born with? But here is a deeper truth. Most of what determines your health, your resilience, even parts of your behavior, has very little to do with changing the DNA sequence itself. It has to do with how your body reads that sequence. Imagine your DNA as an enormous library containing every possible instruction your body might ever need. Billions of letters long. The same library exists, with tiny variations, in every human being. Yet, some people thrive, while others struggle. Identical twins with the exact same books on the shelf often live very different lives. Why? Because there is a second layer. Epigenetics. The marks above the genes. These are not changes to the text itself. They are highlights, bookmarks, sticky notes, and margin annotations that tell your cells which pages to read loudly, which to whisper, and which to leave closed. One mark can silence a gene that promotes inflammation. Another can amplify a gene that builds resilience. These marks respond to your life. Most people still believe genes are a fixed blueprint. You inherited the code, and now you must live with it. Science once seemed to support this view. But the deeper, more astonishing reality is this. Your genome is responsive. It listens. It adapts. Every single day, your choices add new annotations. Think of it like this. Your DNA is the hardware, powerful, unchanging in its core sequence, while epigenetic marks are the software. Or picture a world-class orchestra. The sheet music is the same for every musician, but the conductor decides which sections rise, which stay quiet, and when the violins pour out their emotion. You are both the orchestra and, to a remarkable degree, the conductor. How does this work in practice? Two of the most important mechanisms are DNA methylation and histone modification. Methylation is like placing a small lock on certain genes, reducing their activity. Histone modifications are like loosening or tightening the spools around which DNA is wound, making genes more or less accessible. These are not abstract ideas. They are happening inside you right now. A single meal rich in certain nutrients can influence these marks. Chronic stress can etch patterns that increase inflammation for years. Regular exercise can activate genes that protect your heart and brain. Even your thoughts and social connections send signals that reach all the way down to gene expression. The science is clear and profound. Environment and behavior talk back to your biology. Two people can carry the same genetic variant associated with higher disease risk. One develops the condition, the other does not. The difference is often written in their epigenome. Same book, different reading instructions. There is a famous study with agouti mice. These mice carry a gene that makes them yellow, obese, and prone to diabetes. When pregnant mothers were given a diet rich in methyl donors, common nutrients found in many whole foods, the offspring were born lean, brown, and healthy. Same genes, different reading instructions. The mother's nutrition created space between genetic risk and actual outcome. Or consider the Dutch hunger winter. During World War II, a famine swept through the Netherlands. Children conceived or growing during that time carried epigenetic changes decades later. Their bodies had been marked by scarcity. They showed higher rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease as adults, not because their DNA sequence changed, but because their epigenome had adapted to expect a world of shortage. The environment left instructions that persisted. Even more striking are identical twins. Same DNA. Yet over the years, as they lived different lives, one exercising and eating well, the other stressed and sedentary, their epigenetic profiles diverge. One may stay healthy while the other develops disease. Same blueprint, different annotations. When you truly understand this, something powerful happens. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of inherited code. You begin to observe instead of accept. You realize that your daily habits are not just superficial choices. They are messages to your genome. Your food is information. Your stress is information. Your sleep, your movement, your relationships. All of it is information, constantly updating the software that runs your body. This shift does not happen overnight. It requires conscious awareness. Here is a practical exercise. The next time you face a health challenge or notice a family pattern showing up in your life, pause and ask yourself, what else could be influencing this besides the genes themselves? Force your mind to generate at least 3 epigenetic factors. Maybe my chronic sleep debt is amplifying risk genes. Maybe my diet is silencing protective ones. Maybe my constant stress is keeping inflammation switches turned on. This simple mental habit weakens biological fatalism. It inserts agency where helplessness usually dominates, because most feelings of genetic doom are belief-based, not destiny-based. The ego wants certainty. The ego wants a simple story. It's in my genes. But maturity begins when you realize something uncomfortable, yet liberating. Your genes are not a sentence. They are a starting point loaded with potential. Not everything is under your control, but far more than you were taught is responsive to how you live. You are not your last blood test. You are not your family's medical history. You are not defined by one genetic variant. When you understand this intellectually and emotionally, a new possibility opens. Start small. Choose one daily habit this week, with the awareness that it is speaking directly to your epigenome. Perhaps it is eating more colorful plants, practicing breathing exercises when stressed, or protecting your sleep like the valuable biological reset it is. Notice how you feel. But more importantly, know that at the cellular level, something is shifting. Staying empowered with your biology is not about being naive. It is about being strategic with your daily choices. Every time you choose an action that supports healthy gene expression, you conserve potential. You keep your cellular systems flexible. You maintain possibility. And possibility is power. Your genes are not your destiny. But the way you live, that is writing the next chapter. And you hold the pen. Chapter 2. Let go of genetic fatalism. One of the strongest emotional traps in life is this: believing it's in my genes. You look at your family history: obesity, depression, heart disease, struggles with focus or weight, and something inside you tightens. You feel defeated before you even begin. You want to accept it. You want to stop fighting what feels inevitable because genetic fatalism feels like truth. It feels scientific. It feels like surrender to reality. But here is a difficult truth. If you need your genes to be perfect in order to feel hopeful, you will never feel hopeful. There will always be risk variance. There will always be family patterns. There will always be stories of what happened to your parents or grandparents. And you cannot erase that history. Trying to fight it or completely surrender to it will exhaust you. Think about how much mental and emotional energy is spent carrying the weight of "it's in my genes." You replay family stories in your head. You lower your expectations for your health, your mood, your potential. You imagine future limitations just to prepare yourself. All of that consumes inner space. And most of the time it changes nothing, except your willingness to try. When you understand epigenetics, something shifts. You stop chasing the illusion of perfect genes. You stop over-identifying with inherited risks. You stop letting family medical charts define your future. Letting go of genetic fatalism is uncomfortable. It feels like ignoring reality. But it is actually strength, because you are choosing agency over resignation. You are choosing possibility over predestination. There is a quiet confidence in someone who no longer says, "It runs in my family, so what can I do?" Instead, they ask, "How can I work with my biology today?" That shift signals stability. It says, "I honor my heritage, but I am not limited to it. My choices write new instructions." That doesn't mean you ignore your genetics. Context matters. Family history matters. Biology matters. But the key question is this: am I using my genes as information or as an excuse? If it's an excuse, pause. The need to blame everything on DNA is often rooted in fear. It suggests your sense of control depends on having flawless genes. True empowerment comes from internal agency. You know your risks. You know your starting point. But you also know your epigenome is listening. Imagine two people with the same high-risk gene variants for obesity or diabetes. One accepts the narrative "it's in my genes" and continues old patterns. The other learns that lifestyle can dramatically influence how those genes are expressed. Studies show that consistent changes in diet, movement, sleep, and stress management can powerfully shift outcomes, sometimes overriding genetic predisposition. The same DNA, different reading. Real-world examples surround us. Identical twins diverge. Populations recover from generational trauma through improved nutrition and environment. People reverse type 2 diabetes, improve mood disorders, and extend healthy lifespan far beyond what their family history suggested. Not by changing the genes, but by changing the signals those genes receive. Letting go of genetic fatalism does not mean you deny biology. It means you stop merging your identity with inherited risk. You are not your family's disease pattern. You are not your mother's depression or your father's heart condition. You are not defined by one set of genetic variants. When you understand this intellectually and emotionally, a new freedom opens. Here is a practical exercise. The next time you catch yourself thinking, "It's in my genes" about your weight, your mood, your energy, or any health challenge, pause. Reframe it through an epigenetic lens. Say out loud or internally, "This is a risk I inherited, but my daily choices can influence how this gene is expressed. What signal can I send today that supports a healthier outcome?" Force yourself to name one small, specific action: a walk, a nourishing meal, a breathing practice, better sleep. Do this consistently and watch how the emotional weight lightens. This simple mental habit weakens fatalism. It inserts possibility where helplessness used to dominate, because most genetic fatalism is story-based, not destiny-based. You will still notice family patterns. You will still carry certain vulnerabilities. You will still face days when old tendencies feel strong. You are human, but you will no longer let those inherited stories dictate your behavior or limit your hope. That is the difference between passive inheritance and active stewardship, between biological victimhood and biological leadership. There is also a deeper layer. Sometimes we cling to genetic fatalism because it absolves us of responsibility. If it's all in the genes, then failure isn't our fault. But when you release that story, you step into maturity. You honor the past without being chained to it. You respect the science without worshiping genetic determinism. Energy is finite. Spend it on understanding your unique biology and shaping it wisely. If a risk is real, adjust your habits with clarity. If a pattern appears, observe it without collapse. Let consistency speak louder than family history. When you reach this point, emotional triggers around health weaken. You are no longer easily defeated by genetic test results or family stories. You are no longer shaken by every diagnosis statistic. You move differently, more grounded, more curious, more empowered. And that stability becomes magnetic. In a world quick to label people by their risks and diagnoses, the person who understands the responsive nature of their biology stands out. Not loud, not in denial, just steady. And steadiness is power. Letting go of genetic fatalism requires trust. Trust in your daily choices. Trust in the science of epigenetics. Trust in time and consistency. Not every risk needs total surrender. Not every family story needs to become your future. Not every genetic marker needs to control your mindset. Sometimes, acceptance of risk, paired with intentional action, is the most powerful response. Silence the inner fatalist. Let your actions become the new narrative. You are no longer waiting for perfect genes to feel capable. You are no longer waiting for science to erase every risk before you begin. You decide, and that decision restores power. Chapter 3. Master your inner environment. One of the most powerful realizations in life is this: your inner world is constantly talking to your genes. You feel stressed, you skip sleep, you eat on the run, you scroll through comparison, and your biology listens. Cortisol rises. Inflammation signals increase. Protective genes quiet down. And just like that, your inner state begins to reshape your cellular reality. This is where most people lose their sense of biological agency. Not because life is inherently overwhelming, but because they treat their thoughts, emotions, and daily habits as separate from their biology. They believe only major events or medications can influence their genes. But here is the deeper truth. Your inner environment, your mind, your stress levels, your sleep, your food, your movement, your relationships, creates constant epigenetic signals. These signals do not change your DNA code. They decide which parts of it get expressed. Think of your cells as an incredibly sensitive audience. Every thought sends a chemical messenger. Every meal delivers information. Chronic stress floods the system with cortisol, which can add methyl groups that silence resilience genes and amplify inflammation pathways. Poor sleep disrupts the delicate timing of gene expression. Nutrient-rich foods provide methyl donors and compounds that support healthy histone modifications, essentially loosening the packaging, so beneficial genes can be read more easily. Exercise activates genes involved in muscle repair, brain health, and longevity. Even loving connection and a sense of purpose send signals of safety that support balanced gene expression. Most people live as if their inner world is private. They think worry is harmless, late nights are normal, processed food is just convenience. But your epigenome experiences it all as instructions. The same way external experiences leave marks, your internal environment does too, often more powerfully, because it is constant. There is a profound beauty here. Your mind and body are in constant conversation with your genome. What you repeatedly think, feel, and do becomes the dominant signal. When you truly understand this, something powerful happens. You stop treating your daily habits as trivial. You begin to observe instead of autopilot. You realize that how you speak to yourself, how you handle pressure, what you put on your plate, these are not just lifestyle choices. They are epigenetic choices. They are messages that either support health and resilience or reinforce vulnerability. This shift does not happen overnight. It requires conscious awareness. Here is a practical exercise you can use immediately, several times throughout your day, especially when you notice stress rising or before a meal. Pause for a slow, intentional breath. Inhale deeply for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale slowly for 6. As you breathe, say internally, I am sending signals of safety and nourishment to my cells right now. Feel the breath. Choose one supportive action, a nourishing bite, a walk, a kind thought, or simply presence. This simple practice interrupts reactive patterns and begins to shift the chemical conversation happening inside you. It tells your epigenome that you are present and intentional. It sounds simple, but it is powerful because once you create that mindful space, you gain access to a new question. What signal do I want to send my biology in this moment? Not what feels easiest, but what serves my long-term expression, my energy, my clarity, my future self. You will still feel stress. You will still have busy days and tempting foods. You will still experience difficult emotions and imperfect habits. But you will no longer let them dictate your gene expression without awareness. That is the difference between living at the mercy of your inner environment and becoming its wise steward, between scattered signals and directed ones, between chaos in your cells and calm leadership. Mastering your inner environment also protects you from overwhelm. You cannot control every external factor, but you can shape the internal climate that reaches your epigenome. A calm mind lowers inflammatory signals. Restorative sleep resets methylation patterns. Consistent movement turns on protective genes. Meaningful relationships buffer against negative epigenetic drift. The more you practice this mastery, the more stable you become. You stop being dragged by every mood swing or craving. You stop absorbing stress as permanent programming. You stop feeling powerless in the face of modern life. Instead, you become the conductor. You create conditions where resilience genes sing louder than risk genes. Your thoughts are not harmless. Your stress is not invisible. Your choices are not trivial. They are the language your biology understands best. In a world filled with constant stimulation and quick fixes, the person who learns to regulate their inner environment stands out through steady, intentional signals. And that steadiness becomes your edge. Mastering your inner environment requires trust. Trust that small, consistent choices compound at the cellular level. Trust that your body wants to work with you. Trust that it is never too late to send new, better instructions. You are no longer waiting for perfect circumstances to take control of your biology. You begin now with the environment inside you. Chapter 4. The Inheritance We Pass On. One of the deepest emotional burdens in life is this: the fear that your struggles will become your children's struggles. You carry family trauma, health patterns, or emotional wounds, and something inside you tightens. You worry that your stress, your mistakes, or your pain will be written into your children's biology. You want to protect them. You want to break the cycle because the idea of passing on invisible marks feels like an inescapable inheritance. But here is a difficult truth. If you believe your past completely determines your descendants' future, you will carry unnecessary weight. There will always be echoes from previous generations. There will always be marks left by hardship, famine, loss, or stress. And you cannot erase history. Trying to control every possible outcome or drowning in guilt will exhaust you. When you understand transgenerational epigenetics, something shifts. You stop seeing yourself as a helpless link in a chain of suffering. You stop over-identifying with inherited burdens. You stop letting the past dictate the legacy you leave. Letting go of genetic fatalism across generations is uncomfortable. It feels like ignoring reality. But it is actually strength, because you are choosing conscious creation over unconscious repetition. You are choosing hope over helpless inheritance. There is a quiet power in someone who understands. My experiences can leave marks, but my choices can write new instructions. That shift signals stability. It says, I honor what came before me, but I am not bound to repeat it. I can begin a new pattern. This doesn't mean your past has no impact. Science shows it does. During the Dutch hunger winter, mothers who experienced famine passed epigenetic changes to their children, and even grandchildren, such as altered metabolism, higher disease risk. Studies on Holocaust survivors and their descendants reveal modified stress responses, not through changes in DNA sequence, but through persistent epigenetic signals. Animal studies confirm it. Fear conditioning in one generation can influence behavior in offspring for generations. The body remembers scarcity, danger, and stress, and it prepares future generations accordingly. Yet, here is the hopeful counterpart. Positive influences travel too. Improved nutrition, reduced stress, loving environments, and healthy habits can layer beneficial marks that support resilience, better metabolism, and emotional balance in children and grandchildren. The epigenome is not a one-way sentence of doom. It is a responsive system. Marks can be added. Patterns can be softened. New legacies can be written. Most people believe inheritance is fixed. It runs in the family. Nothing I can do. But the deeper truth is this. While you cannot change what your ancestors experienced, you have remarkable influence over what you pass forward. Your daily choices are not just about you. They are signals that may echo beyond your lifetime. You will still carry echoes of the past. You will still notice certain tendencies in yourself or your family line. You will still face moments when old patterns feel strong. But you no longer have to let them dictate the biological story you hand to the next generation. That is the difference between being a passive carrier of history and becoming a conscious architect of the future. Between burden and responsibility. Between repeating cycles and breaking them. Here is a practical exercise. Take a quiet moment today or this week. Sit down and reflect. What epigenetic legacy do I want to create for those who come after me? Write or speak 3 specific choices you can make consistently. Better nourishment, calmer responses to stress, more presence in relationships, regular movement, or restorative sleep. Then ask, what small action today moves me toward that legacy? This exercise transforms abstract science into personal mission. Feel the weight lift as you shift from guilt to purposeful action. Spend your energy building what you want to pass on, rather than fearing what was passed to you. If trauma echoes exist, meet them with compassion and conscious countersignals. If positive patterns are present, strengthen them. Your love, your discipline, your healing become part of the inheritance. When you reach this point, emotional triggers around family history weaken. You are no longer easily crushed by thoughts of what I might pass on. You are no longer paralyzed by ancestral pain. You move differently, more intentional, more hopeful, more empowered. And that stability becomes a gift. In a world where many feel trapped by family patterns, the person who understands they can influence the biological narrative stands out. Not loud, not in denial of the past, just steady. And steadiness is power. Creating a better inheritance requires trust. Trust in the science. Trust in small daily choices. Trust that your efforts matter, even if results unfold over years or generations. Not every mark needs to be perfectly controlled. Not every ancestral story needs to define tomorrow. Not every risk must become reality. Sometimes, the most powerful inheritance is a parent or grandparent who learn to live with awareness, resilience, and love. That modeling, paired with better biological signals, creates freedom. You are no longer waiting for perfect healing before you can contribute positively. You begin now. Your choices today are writing tomorrow's instructions. Chapter 5. From Cells to Behavior in Society. One of the most profound awakenings comes when you realize this. The same quiet marks shaping your cells are also shaping how you think, feel, and act, and ultimately, the world around you. You notice a habit you can't seem to break, a mood that lingers, a community stuck in patterns of struggle, and something inside you wonders, is this permanent? Is this just who we are? This is where most people feel small. They believe behavior is fixed, personality is set, and societal problems are too big for any one person to influence. They see cycles of poverty, stress, poor health, and disconnection as inevitable. But here is the deeper truth. Epigenetics bridges the microscopic to the massive. The marks above your genes do not stop at your body. They influence your habits, your resilience, your outlook, and through you, they ripple into families, communities, and entire civilizations. Chronic stress can etch patterns that make anxiety or reactivity more likely by altering genes involved in mood regulation. Poor nutrition in early life can influence genes tied to impulse control and learning. Loving, stable environments can activate pathways that support focus, empathy, and emotional regulation. These are not abstract ideas. They are the biological foundation of why some people rise above hardship while others remain trapped, and why entire groups show similar patterns across generations. Most people think personality and behavior are purely who you are. Society's challenges are seen as purely economic or cultural, but science reveals something more hopeful and more responsible. Epigenetic changes help explain why trauma can echo through communities, why resilience can spread, and why small shifts in daily life can alter trajectories at every scale. Consider populations that endured famine or collective trauma. Epigenetic marks carried forward altered stress responses, metabolism, and even risk-taking behavior in descendants. Entire regions showed patterns of health and outlook shaped by events decades earlier. Yet, when conditions improved, better nutrition, education, safety, new marks formed. Cycles began to break. This is how cells shape civilization. When enough individuals begin managing their inner environment, reducing chronic stress, nourishing their bodies, building secure relationships, the effects compound. Health improves. Mental clarity rises. Better decisions are made. Children receive different signals in the womb and early years. Communities become more resilient. Cultures shift toward possibility instead of limitation. What begins as a cellular choice becomes a societal current. When you truly grasp this, you stop seeing yourself as insignificant. You begin to observe instead of accept. You realize that your daily habits are not just personal. They are contributions to a larger biological conversation. Your calm under pressure, your consistent choices, your presence. These send signals that can echo far beyond you. This shift requires conscious awareness. Here is a practical exercise. The next time you make a choice, what to eat, how to respond to stress, whether to move your body or connect with someone, pause and ask, beyond me, who might this choice affect? What small signal am I sending into the future? Hold both your own well-being and the wider ripple in mind. Choose accordingly. This simple mental habit weakens the illusion of isolation. It inserts meaning and responsibility where disconnection once lived, because most feelings of powerlessness come from believing your life is too small to matter. It is not. You will still face personal struggles. You will still see societal challenges that feel overwhelming. You will still have days when old patterns pull strongly. But you will no longer let the scale of the problem convince you that your choices are meaningless. That is the difference between living as an isolated individual and recognizing yourself as part of a living, responsive system. Between passive observer and active participant in human potential. In a world quick to blame genes, fate, or systems beyond repair, the person who understands the bridge from cells to society stands out, steady in their daily practice. And that steadiness creates influence. Your life is not too small. Your choices are not insignificant. Every signal you send, through stress or calm, through nourishment or neglect, becomes part of the collective story. The question is no longer whether you can make a difference. The question is, what difference will you choose to make? When enough people master their inner environment, societies gain a new kind of resilience. Innovation flows more freely. Empathy deepens. Cycles of suffering lose their grip. This is how civilizations evolve, not only through technology or policy, but through the accumulated epigenetic wisdom of individuals who decided to live more intentionally. You are no longer waiting for the world to change before you take responsibility for your biology. You begin now, and in doing so, you help shape what is possible for all of us. Chapter 6. Become comfortable with your plasticity. One of the greatest discomforts in life is believing your biology is fixed. You reach a certain age and think, this is it. My brain has settled. My habits are set. My body is on a predetermined path. You feel the weight of past choices, the slowdown of aging, the challenge of changing long-held patterns. And something inside you tightens. You want to accept your limits. You want to stop fighting what feels inevitable. This is where most biological resignation begins, not in your actual capacity, but in the story you attach to your age, your history, and your habits. The belief that plasticity ends early feels natural. It feels realistic. Science once seemed to support it. But here is a deeper, more liberating truth. Both your brain and your epigenome remain remarkably plastic throughout your entire life. They adapt, they rewire, they respond to new signals at any age. You are never too old, too stuck, or too far gone to change the instructions your biology follows. Your genome is not a rigid script that hardens with time. Epigenetic marks continue to shift in response to your choices. At the same time, neuroplasticity allows your brain to form new connections, strengthen pathways for focus and calm, and even recover function well into later decades. These two forms of plasticity work together. Your thoughts and actions don't just influence your mood or energy. They literally reshape the physical architecture of your brain and the reading instructions of your genes. Most people believe real change is for the young, that after 30 or 40, you are who you are. But science tells a different story. People who begin consistent exercise in their 60s and 70s show improved gene expression for muscle repair and brain health. Individuals who cultivate mindfulness practices later in life demonstrate measurable changes in stress-related gene activity and thicker prefrontal cortex regions associated with emotional regulation. Even after significant hardship, the brain and epigenome retain the capacity to heal and adapt. When you realize this, you stop seeing your past or your age as a life sentence. You begin to observe instead of resign. You realize that discomfort with change is not a sign of limitation. It is the very territory where plasticity lives. Every time you choose a new habit, you are not fighting your biology. Rather, you are activating its greatest gift, adaptability. This shift requires conscious awareness and comfort with discomfort. Here is a practical exercise. Each day for the next week, pick one small area where you feel stuck, a reactive pattern, a sedentary habit, negative self-talk. Instead of avoiding the discomfort of change, lean into it gently. Take one deliberate action that sends a positive signal, a short walk, a moment of deep breathing, choosing nourishing food, or pausing before reacting. As you do it, remind yourself, my brain and my epigenome are responding right now. I am building new pathways. Notice the resistance. Breathe through it. Celebrate the act of choosing plasticity over comfort. This simple practice weakens the story of fixed limitations. It inserts possibility where resignation once dominated. It trains you to sit with the temporary discomfort of growth, knowing that on the other side lives greater capacity. That is the difference between aging as decline and aging as continued evolution, between accepting a static biology and becoming its active partner, between limitation and lifelong potential. There is a quiet pride in knowing you can adapt at any stage. You don't need to escape discomfort. You don't need to deny reality. You can endure it and grow through it. Endurance in small daily practices builds new neural connections and healthier epigenetic patterns. Consistency becomes your greatest tool. The more you become comfortable with your plasticity, the more stable and empowered you feel. You stop fearing midlife or later chapters. You stop absorbing the cultural narrative that your best years are behind you. You become the person who approaches each season with curiosity and intention. In a world that often equates youth with potential, the person who embraces lifelong plasticity stands out, steady, adaptable, and quietly powerful. Trust that your biology is still listening. Trust that small, repeated actions compound. Trust that it is never too late to send better signals. You are no longer waiting for perfect conditions or perfect youth to begin shaping your biology. You begin now. Every choice is a vote for the version of you still waiting to emerge. Chapter 7. Protect and direct your epigenetic influence. Your epigenetic stability is connected to one thing above all: the quality of the signals you allow into your biology. Not luck, not perfect genes, not fate, but the daily inputs you accept or reject. Most people are not biologically overwhelmed because life is inherently toxic. They are overwhelmed because their epigenetic environment is scattered: constant processed food, unrelenting stress, poor sleep, toxic relationships, and endless negative stimulation. These inputs drain potential. They send chaotic instructions. Where your inputs go, your gene expression follows. To stay empowered with your biology, you must become selective like a leader. Leaders do not accept every influence. They do not expose themselves to every toxin. They do not let every distraction rewrite their internal code. They guard their epigenetic environment because it fuels clarity, resilience, and calm. Imagine your epigenome as a limited daily budget of potential. Every poor choice costs something. Every chronic stressor costs something. Every inflammatory meal or sleepless night costs something. If you overspend early in the day or week, your cells become depleted. Small challenges feel heavier. Your capacity for change weakens. This is why protecting and directing your epigenetic influence is foundational. Start by observing where your signals drain most. Is it ultra-processed food that disrupts methylation? Is it constant news and social media that keeps stress genes active? Is it toxic relationships that flood your system with cortisol? Is it irregular sleep that throws gene timing into chaos? Not every input deserves your biology's attention. One of the strongest habits you can build is controlled exposure. You do not need constant stimulation. You do not need to consume every trend, every toxin, every drama. When you reduce negative inputs, internal order increases and silence and intentional routines become restorative. Another major leak is unconscious repetition of old patterns. You eat the same inflammatory foods. You replay stressful thoughts. You stay in environments that no longer serve you. All of this consumes epigenetic bandwidth. Ask yourself, is this input supporting healthy gene expression or working against it? If not, redirect. Not through force, but through deliberate choice. Shift to real food. Shift to movement. Shift to presence. Shift to meaningful connection. Leaders operate from intentional direction. They ask, what signals do I want shaping my biology today? Then they protect that vision. Protecting your epigenetic influence also means setting clear boundaries. If something repeatedly disrupts your calm, certain foods, people, or environments, you adjust proximity. You don't need dramatic battles. Sometimes the solution is quieter, less exposure, less availability, more discernment. Another aspect is caring for the foundations: sleep, movement, and nourishment. When exhausted, epigenetic regulation suffers. When sedentary, beneficial genes stay quiet. When overstimulated by junk, inflammation rises. Taking care of your body is not separate from epigenetic mastery. It is the direct language your cells understand best. Breathing practices and moments of presence also play a major role. When stressed, signals shorten and distort. In such times, slow, intentional breathing signals safety to your nervous system. Safety reduces harmful epigenetic urgency. The empowered person does not rush internally. They maintain a steady, wise direction. Protecting and directing your influence also involves knowing when not to absorb every external signal. Just because the world is chaotic does not mean your biology must match it. Delayed reactions to stress, curated inputs, and chosen environments are strategic. They allow clarity to surface, and clarity prevents unnecessary drift. You do not need to match the toxicity around you. You do not need to absorb every cultural trend. You do not need to let modern convenience rewrite your code. Matching negative influences is reactive. Directing your own signals is leadership. There is also power in creating positive epigenetic solitude. Time for reflection, nature, or deep rest restores balance. It allows you to reconnect with intentional standards instead of external noise. That reconnection strengthens your ability to shape your biology and, by extension, your legacy. Protecting and directing your epigenetic influence is not selfish. It is responsible. If you allow constant negative drift, you become reactive at the cellular level. If you guard and direct wisely, you remain flexible, resilient, and influential. Steadiness builds personal power. Personal power builds broader impact. Life will test you through endless modern inputs, ultra-processed options, constant notifications, environmental toxins, social pressures. If you allow all of them inside your biology, your potential erodes. But if you filter intentionally, you create internal order. And internal order is the foundation of true epigenetic mastery. You cannot control how chaotic the world is, but you can control how much of it enters your cells. Choose carefully. Guard your inputs. Protect your epigenetic bandwidth. Spend your signals on growth, on meaningful connection, on deliberate habits, not on unconscious drift. The more intentional you become, the more others may project chaos toward you, because calm, directed biology can feel threatening to those still scattered. They may try to pull you back in. But when your influence is protected and directed, you do not absorb it. You observe. You evaluate. You choose. When you master the protection and direction of your epigenetic influence, staying empowered becomes natural because you are no longer biologically overdrawn. You are stable. You are responsive. You are in control. And from that place, life's tests lose much of their power over you. Throughout this journey, you have seen something profound. You do not master your biology by eliminating every challenge. You master it by understanding and directing the responsive layer above your genes. You learn that your genes are not your destiny. You learn to create space between stimulus and response. You learn to release genetic fatalism. You learn to master your inner environment. You learn the power of inheritance you can shape. You learn to embrace plasticity. And now you know how to protect and direct your epigenetic influence. Each of these skills builds the same foundation, conscious stewardship. When you stop accepting every signal unconsciously, you conserve potential. When you stop fearing your genes, you regain agency. When you stop drifting through habits, you build authority. And when you stop letting modern chaos dictate your biology, you step into a different version of yourself, a steadier, wiser, more powerful version. This understanding does not mean life becomes effortless. It means you become intentional. There will still be stresses, temptations, and imperfect days. But now you know how to meet them. You pause. You choose. You direct. That choice is everything. Most people live in reactive biology. Their health shifts with every convenience. Their mood shifts with every headline. Their potential shifts with every unchecked habit. You no longer have to live that way. You can move through life sending clear, empowering signals. You can age with plasticity. You can influence those around you and those who come after you. That level of stewardship is rare, and rare qualities build extraordinary lives. The calmest, most intentional person in the room often holds the deepest influence, not because they control everything, but because they are not controlled by unconscious signals. When you are no longer easily drifted by poor inputs, chaos loses leverage. When you are no longer defined by inherited patterns, possibility opens. When you are no longer scattered in your biology, you see clearly. You move differently, more intentional, more measured, more impactful. Calm, directed biology commands respect, not through force, not through perfection, but through quiet mastery. But remember this: epigenetic stewardship is not a one-time decision. It is daily practice. You will still face tempting inputs. You will still feel the pull of old patterns. You will still encounter stress. The difference now is awareness. You recognize the signal before it rewrites you. And with that awareness, you regain direction. So here is a simple challenge. For the next 72 hours, practice 3 things. First, pause before consuming anything: food, media, conversation, and ask what signal it sends. Second, choose one positive epigenetic action daily, with full intention. Third, protect one boundary against a known drain. Observe how different you feel. Observe how much clearer your energy becomes. Observe how much more empowered your biology responds. Small practices create lasting biological shifts. And over time, you will notice something subtle but profound. Habits that once controlled you now feel manageable. Challenges that once overwhelmed you now meet a steadier system. You will realize that life still tests you, but you now shape how it writes upon you. That is freedom. Not freedom from all challenges, but freedom from unconscious biological captivity. When you reach that point, you stop chasing perfect conditions. You embody intentional influence. An intentional influence is unshakable. Carry this with you not as inspiration, but as practice, not as motivation, but as identity. Become the person who protects their epigenetic environment. Become the person who directs their signals wisely. Become the person who stewards their biology like a leader. And when life tests you, as it always will, you will remain steady, responsive, and powerfully in control. Because the real victory was never about having perfect genes. It was about learning to work with the extraordinary responsive system you already carry. And that is a power no one can take from you. This is your training, not to fear your biology, but to lead it, not to fight your cells, but to partner with them. So take this understanding, breathe deeply, and step into the life that epigenetics has been waiting for you to claim.